Hello and welcome to part 6. We'll be going on the Occupy Factory mission, which brings us to one of my favorite locales in the game. Basically, the Resistance's energy stores are running pretty low, so we're getting sent to an abandoned factory that's chock full of the stuff to capture it for the Resistance's own use. Being a factory, it's also filled with all kinds of fun electronics that make for a very interesting and varied level design. Before we get to that, though, we gotta go through the bland part of the level, through all the pipes and these annoying ray shield enemies. They block all attacks from the front, so you gotta attack them from the bottom or from behind. The level's also filled with a large amount of cyber elves, so you gotta be on the lookout for them, and make sure to kill enough of the enemies that spawn them, otherwise you're out of luck. There's our first one. The reason CL is interrupting us here is because of the first of the gimmicks in this stage. On the long winding path in front of us are a bunch of motion detectors. If you get caught in the crosshairs, they'll set off an alarm. And if you set off the alarm, this shutter starts to close. If it closes all the way before you get through, it's mission failed for you. There's an easier way to get past though, and we'll be taking that way. Before that though, we gotta kill enough of these hopper enemies to get a cyber elf. And a Z-saber skill up. This gives us the jumping rolling slash, which extends our range a fair amount and looks fairly cool while doing it, so nice addition. It's very reminiscent of the Kuan-san from Megaman X4. Now this over here is the super secret entrance. By jumping over these silos, we can get to a ventilation shaft. And by cutting our way through a couple fans, a 1-up, and a cyber elf, we'll be able to skip that entire annoying section. Oh, and one more Z-saber skill up, which gives us pretty much the best ability in the game. We now have the charged saber slash, which deals a great amount of damage, has great range, and when combined with an elemental weakness, deals obscene amounts of damage. Falling is faster than taking the elevator, so we'll do that instead. And yet more interesting stuff. We're now going over a bottomless pit using only the lumber carried by carry arms. You have to avoid these, I can only assume they're welding instruments, odd place to put them, but whatever. You have to avoid them, because they do damage you. More cyber elf. They slowly drift toward your location, so if you just stand above it, it'll get right to you. Yeah, that's enough of that. More cyber elves. What do you know? And now a bunch of electrical beam spawner things. They are destructible if you want to go out of your way to destroy them, but I wouldn't recommend it. And spiders. One last cyber elf for us. Over here in the secret alcove. We're at the boss already. Fairly short stage, but it's a fun one. The boss is a weird one, though. This guy is Guard Erotic. He's based on the 8-headed serpent Orochi, and believe it or not, this guy was actually originally intended to be a rescue mechanoid. Kinda odd, I wouldn't want to be rescued by that thing, but whatever. The attack it's using right now is Core Vulcan, that's its EX skill, and it shoots at you. Not the most original one, but whatever. Its main attack is this. It uses 2 of its elemental-themed heads to attack you. The orange ones are neutral, and they'll just bite at you. Red ones are fire, green ones are electricity, and blue are ice. Only the core can actually be hurt for hurting the boss, but you can destroy the heads. They'll just eventually respawn, though, so I won't recommend it. He has quite a bit of health, the most we've seen in the game so far, but with our new charged saber slash, he doesn't really stand much of a chance. He can't be cut in half either, so sorry about that. And we get the last of the elemental chips, the fire chip. And we can actually use them now that we have a charge slash. And the Resistance gets its factory. Woohoo, I suppose. And that's that. Normally this is the part where we'd cut some Resistance-based dialogue, but something a little different is going to happen in this part. What's this? An alarm? Like the X series before it, the Zero series comes pre-packaged with a couple intermission levels spaced throughout the game. This one in particular activates automatically after you've beaten 4 missions after the Aztec Falcon one. Basically, a giant enemy mechanoid has begun attacking Resistance base, and of course we have to go out and intercept it from the back. starts out right outside the Reploid Disposal Center we destroyed at the beginning of the game. And it's opposite the boss door, funnily enough. And this is the boss itself. This guy's name is Hittite Hotide. Quite an odd name for quite an odd boss. This guy does not have a conventional health bar. He has sections that you have to destroy one at a time, and they each do different things. Judging from the sound earlier, I can only assume he was airdropped in by a helicopter of some sort. Don't know why they wouldn't drop him closer, but whatever. He'll slowly crawl his way to the left, destroying everything in his path, and you have to kill him before he reaches the resistance base. Mine dropper in the back drops mines. There is the circular hatch is a Glee launcher, it launches these bat enemies, and the top is a parabomb launcher. Unfortunately for you, the only enemies in the stage are these Glee eyes, and yes, you are ranked for the number of enemies you destroy, so you gotta systematically destroy everything but the Glee eye launcher. You also have to do it fairly fast, because in order to get the full time ranking, you have to kill him before, like far before he actually reaches the resistance base. You may notice I'm purposely avoiding the hatch. That's because if I destroyed the Glee eye, stopped coming out. Now, you may be tempted to destroy him fairly quickly, but that's not actually a good idea, because you have to let him get a certain distance to the left to unblock a certain pathway that we'll be able to take to another Cyber Elf later in the game. Not very intuitive at all. And this whole time, CL will be informing you as to its progress. If it gets all the way to the left, it'll actually invade the resistance base, and that commences a mission you wouldn't normally encounter until near the end of the game, where the resistance base gets attacked itself. Kind of interesting, but I wouldn't recommend it, seeing as you have to fail the mission. Now, this guy here only appears if you manage to get an A or S rank. It's its EX skill, Last Battalion, and it causes the Pantheon pilot of Hittite Hotide to appear. Pretty easy to kill, but, you know, it could get an extra hit or two on you. You have to let it tunnel through this yellow structure far enough to open up the hatch below, otherwise you won't be able to get to the Cyber Elf later. All the damage it causes is permanent. And there we go. Short stage, but you have to make sure to use strategy when fighting him. And we're an immortal now. Now it's time for the resistance-based dialogue. It's fairly short in this part, as I said it's winding down. However, I am actually going to stay here because some important things happen. Firstly, over there we can see that they're gearing up for a predicted attack from the western desert front. That's going to be important in just a bit. Keep note of that. We'll be activating this trans server, so now we can just teleport back there whenever we want to without having to walk the 30 seconds there. Convenient, I suppose. But now, like I promised in the last part, we'll be going down to Servo and getting our first new weapon. He developed it from the data we got in the Retrieve the Data mission. And it's the Triple Rod. And I'll be showing it off here. Basically, it's a melee weapon that can be used to attack in any of the 8 directions pretty accurately. And you can extend it up to 3 times once you level it up. I'll be showing that off in the next part. If you attack an enemy with it by attacking below while you're jumping, you'll actually be able to bounce off their heads, which is important for one Cyber Elf later in the game. It's harder to combo with it though, so the Z-saber is generally better, and I'll be using that for the most part. Nothing else much of note happens in this part, so I'll be signing out here. See you next time.